Chapter 21. The Maika Mystery. It had been nearly 3 months since Ganesh had saved Kartik's life. Though still limping, he had recovered enough to know that he had to go back to Panchavati. He had been conscious for a month now. Each waking moment reminded him of the torment in his mother's heart. The rift between Shiva and Sati was more than he could bear. As far as he knew, the only way out was for him to leave. "Let's leave tomorrow, Mosi," said Ganesh. "Have you told your mother?" asked Kali. "I intend to leave her a note." Kali narrowed her eyes. "She will not let me go, even though she must." Kali took a deep breath. "So you are just going to forget her?" Ganesh smiled sadly. "I have got enough love from her in the past few months to last me a lifetime. I can live on my memories, but she cannot live without the Neelkant." A puzzled Shiva rose to receive Atithigwa. The Kashi king had never stepped into the Branga quarters before. He had always waited for the Neelkant outside. "What is the matter, your highness?" "My lord, I just received word that Emperor Daksha is on his way to Kashi." "I don't understand the urgency. If you have received word today, I'm sure the Emperor will not be here for another 2 to 3 months." "No, my lord. He's coming today, in a few hours. I just received word from an advance party." Shiva raised his eyebrows, surprised beyond words. "My lord," said Atithigwa, "I wanted to request you to come to the throne room to take your rightful place, so that we may receive the Emperor." "I will come," said Shiva. "But please ensure that only you are there. I do not want to receive him along with your courtiers." This was unorthodox. Atithigwa frowned, but didn't question Shiva's unusual demand. He simply left to carry out the orders. "Nandi, word may have been sent to Parvateshwar and Bhagirath as well," said Shiva. "Please tell them it is my wish that they do not come to the court right now. We will have a ceremonial welcome for His Highness a little later." "Yes, my lord." Nandi saluted and left. Veerbhadra whispered to Shiva, "You think he knows?" "No. If I know anything about him, he wouldn't have come had he known that Kali and Ganesh were here. He has come in haste without regard for protocol. It is the action of a father, not an emperor. He was probably missing Sati and Kartik." "What do you want to do? Let it go or discover the truth?" "No way will I let it go. I want to know the truth." Veerbhadra nodded. "I hope for the sake of Sati," said Shiva, "that my suspicions are wrong, that he knew nothing, that the only thing that happened was that Maika's administrators followed the law." "But you fear you are right?" asked Veerbhadra. "Yes." "Any idea how we can find out what actually happened that day?" "Confront him, catch him by surprise. This is the perfect time." Veerbhadra frowned. "I intend to spring Kali and Ganesh on him," said Shiva. "His face will tell me the rest." "What is His Highness doing here?" asked Parvateshwar. "Nobody told me of his plans. How can Kashi do this? This is a breach of protocol." "Nobody knew of this, my lord," said Nandi. "Even King Atithigwa got to know of it right now. Meluha sent no intimation earlier." Parvateshwar looked flabbergasted. Such slips in Meluhan diplomatic procedures were unheard of. Bhagirath shrugged his shoulders. "All kings are alike." Parvateshwar ignored the jibe aimed at the ruler of his realm about his lack of etiquette and protocol. He spoke to Nandi. "Why does the Lord Nilkant not want us to come to the throne room?" "I couldn't say, my lord," replied Nandi. "I'm just following orders." Parvateshwar nodded. "All right, we'll stay here till the Lord calls us." Shiva can have any number of reasons for wanting to meet Kali, but why Ganesh? What's going on? Asked Sati, frowning. Veerbhadra was stumped. Not only was Ganesh in Kali's chamber, but so was Sati. Considering that Daksha was already in Kashi, he had to get Kali and Ganesh into the throne room as fast as he could. It was entirely possible that Daksha might find out about the presence of his Naga daughter and grandson. Time was of the essence. If their surprise meeting had to work, it had to happen now. Veerbhadra had no choice but to announce Shiva's summons to Kali and Ganesh. "I'm just following orders, my lady." "Following orders doesn't entail your not knowing what's going on." "He wants them to see something." "Bhadra," said Sati, "my husband is your best friend. You are married to my best friend. I know you. I know that you know more. I'm not letting my son go till you tell me." Veerbhadra shook his head at Sati's doggedness. He could see what drew Shiva to Sati, despite their temporary estrangement. "My lady, your father is here." Sati was surprised, partly at the unannounced appearance of her father, but more so at Shiva summoning Kali and Ganesh to meet Daksha. Somewhere in his heart, Shiva actually believes that injustice had been made to my sister and son. "Do you want to go?" Sati asked Kali. The Naga queen narrowed her eyes, hand tightening on her sword hilt. "Yes, even wild horses couldn't keep me away." Sati turned to her son. He didn't want a confrontation. He didn't want the truth to come out, to hurt his mother even more. He shook his head. Kali spoke up in surprise. "Why? What are you afraid of?" "I don't want this, Mausi," replied Ganesh. "But I do," said Sati. "Your existence was hidden from me for 90 years. "But those were the rules, Ma," said Ganesh. "No, the rules are that a Naga child cannot live in Meluha. Hiding the truth from the mother is not part of the rules. Had I known, I would have left Meluha with you." "Even if the rule was broken, it's in the past. Please, Ma, forget it." "I will not. I cannot. I want to know how much he knew, and if he did know, why did he lie? To protect his name? So that no one can accuse him for being the progenitor of Nagas? So that he can continue to rule?" "Ma, nothing will come of this," said Ganesh. Kali started laughing. Ganesh turned to her in irritation. "When you were scouring all of India to confront Sati, I had told you this very thing," said Kali. "And what had you said? You wanted answers, that you would not be at peace till you knew the truth about your relationship with your mother, that it would complete you. Then why can't your mother want or expect the same from her father?" "But this is not completion, Mausi," said Ganesh. "This is only confrontation and pain." "Completion is completion, my child," said Kali. "Sometimes completion causes happiness and sometimes pain. Your mother has a right to do this." Saying so, Kali turned to Sati. "Are you sure you want to do this, Didi?" "I want answers," said Sati. Veerbhadra gulped. "My lady, Shiva only asked for Queen Kali and Lord Ganesh, not you." "I am coming, Bhadra," said Sati. "And you know very well that I must." Veerbhadra looked down. Sati was right. She had the right to be there. "Ma," whispered Ganesh. "Ganesh, I am going," said Sati firmly. "You can either come along or not. This is your choice, but you cannot stop me." The Lord of the People took a deep breath, pulled his Angavastram on his shoulder and said, Lead us on, brave Veerbhadra. What a pleasant surprise to see you, your highness, said Adithigva, bowing to the Emperor of India. Daksha nodded as he entered the antechamber of the court. It is my empire, Adithigva. I think I can throw in a surprise or two. Adithigva smiled. Daksha had his wife Virini in tow. She in turn was trailed by the famed Arishtanemi warriors, Maya Shrenik and Vidyunmali. With Parvateshwar's absence from Swadeep, Maya Shrenik had been appointed Provisional General of Meluha's armed forces. Daksha was surprised when he entered the main throne room, as the usual courtly nobles and officials were absent. Only Shiva and Nandi were present. Nandi immediately brought his fist up to his chest and bowed low to his emperor. Daksha smiled at Nandi genially. Shiva remained seated, joining his hand in a namaste. Welcome to Kashi, your highness. Daksha's smile disappeared. He was the emperor of all of India. He deserved respect. Even if Shiva was the Nilkant, protocol demanded that he stand up for the emperor. In the past, Shiva had always done so. This was an insult. How are you, my son-in-law? Said Daksha, trying to keep his anger in check. I am well, your highness. Why don't you sit next to me? Daksha sat. So did Virini and Adithigva. Turning to Adithigva, Daksha said, For such a noisy city, you seem to run a very quiet court, Adithigva. Adithigva smiled. No, my lord, it's just that. My apologies for interrupting, your highness, said Shiva to Adithigva, before turning to Daksha. I thought it would be a good idea for you to meet your children in private. Virini perked up immediately. Where are they, Lord Nilkant? Just then, Veerbhadra walked in, followed by Sati. My child, said a smiling Daksha, forgetting the slight from Shiva. Why didn't you bring my grandson along? I have, said Sati. Ganesh entered the room. Behind him was Kali. Shiva was staring hard at Daksha's face. The Meluhan emperor's eye sprung wide open in recognition. His jaw dropped in shock. He knows. Then Daksha swallowed hard, straightening up. He's afraid. He's hiding something. Shiva also noticed Virini's expression. Profound sadness, eyebrows joined together, but her lips curled up slightly in a smile, struggling to break through, her eyes moist. She knows too, and she loves them. Daksha turned to Adithigva and blustered. How dare you consort with terrorists, King of Kashi? They aren't terrorists, said Sati. Terrorists kill innocents. Kali and Ganesh had never done that. Does Sati speak for the King of Kashi now? Don't speak to him, father, said Sati. Speak to me. What for? Asked Daksha, pointing at Ganesh and Kali. What do you have to do with them? Everything. Their place is with me. Should have always been with me. What? While Nagas have only one place, south of the Narmada, they are not allowed into the Sapt Sindhu. My sister and son are not vile. They are my blood, your blood. Daksha stood, stepping up to Sati. Sister, son, what nonsense. Don't believe the rubbish this scum tell you. Of course they hate me. They will say anything to malign me. I am their sworn enemy. I am the ruler of Meluha, under oath to destroy them. Kali reached for her sword. I am in the mood to challenge you to an Agni Pariksha right now, you repulsive goat. Don't you have any shame? Daksha shouted at Kali. Do penance for your past life sins quietly instead of creating bad blood between a loving father and his daughter. What lies have you told her about me? They haven't said a word, father, said Sati. but their existence says a lot about you. It's not me. They exist because of your mother. Her past life sins have led to this. We never had Nagas in our family before her." Sati's jaw fell. She was seeing the levels to which her father could stoop to for the first time. Virini was staring at Daksha, silent anger smouldering in her eyes. "This is not about past lives, father," said Sati. "It is about this life. You knew, yet you didn't tell me." "I am your father. I have loved you all my life. I have fought the world for you. Will you trust me or some deformed animals?" "They are not deformed animals. They are my family." "You want to make these people your family? People who lie to you, who turn you against your own father?" "They never lied to me," shouted Sati. "You did." "No, I didn't." "You said my son was stillborn." Daksha took a deep breath, looked up at the ceiling as though struggling to regain control, and then glared at Sati. "Why don't you understand? I lied for your own good. Do you know what your life would have been like if you had been declared a Naga's mother?" "I would be with my son." "What rubbish! What would you have done? Lived in Panchavati?" "Yes." "You are my daughter," screamed Daksha. "I have always loved you more than anyone else. I would never have allowed you to suffer in Panchavati." "It wasn't your choice to make." An exasperated Daksha turned to Shiva. "Talk some sense into her, Lord Neelkant." Shiva's eyes were narrowed. He wanted to know how wide this web of deception spread. "Did you get Chandradhwaj killed, Your Highness?" Daksha blanched. Fear was written all over his face. He looked sharply at Sati and then quickly back at Shiva. "Oh Lord, he did." Sati was reeling, shocked into absolute silence. Kali and Ganesh did not seem surprised. Daksha immediately regained control. He pointed a finger at Shiva, his body shaking. "You did this. You choreographed this." Shiva stayed quiet. "You have turned my daughter against me," screamed Daksha. "Maharishi Vrigu was right. The evil Vasudev controlled you." Shiva continued to stare at Daksha, as if actually seeing him for the first time. Daksha was boiling. "What were you? A stupid tribal from a barbaric land? I made you the Neelkant. I gave you power. I gave it to you so that you would bring the Chandravanshis under Meluhan control, so that I could establish peace in India. And you dare to use the power I bestowed upon you against me." Shiva remained passive, making Daksha spew even more venom. "I made you, and I can destroy you." Daksha pulled his knife out and lunged forward. Nandi jumped in front of Shiva, taking the blow on his shield. His Meluhan training didn't allow him to draw his sword at his monarch. Kali and Ganesh, however, had no such compunctions. Drawing their blades rapidly on Daksha, Ganesh jumped in front of Shiva, even as Vidyun Mali drew his sword. Maya Shrinik, a loyal Meluhan who would have fought to the death for his king, was stunned into inaction. He was deeply devoted to Shiva. How could he draw his sword against the Neelkant? "Calm down," said Shiva, raising his hand. Vidyun Mali still had his sword drawn. Daksha's knife had fallen to the ground. Shiva spoke once again. "Nandi, Ganesh, Kali, stand down now." As Shiva's warriors lowered their swords, Vidyun Mali also sheathed his blade. "Your Highness," Shiva addressed Daksha. Daksha's eyes were glued on a teary-eyed Sati who had her sword inches away from her father's throat. His face exhibited the sense of betrayal and loss he felt Sati was the only person he had ever truly loved. "Sati," whispered Shiva, "please, put it down. He's not worth it." Sati's sword inched closer. Shiva stepped forward slowly. "Sati." Her hands were shaking slightly, rage driving her dangerously close to the edge. Shiva touched her shoulder lightly. Sati put it down. Shiva's touch brought Sati back from the precipice. She lowered her sword a little. Her eyes narrowed, her breathing heavy, her body stiff. Daksha continued to stare at Sati. "I am ashamed that your blood runs in my veins," said Sati. Tears began to flow down Daksha's face. "Get out," whispered Sati through gritted teeth. Daksha was deathly silent. "Get out!" Virini got a jolt from Sati's loud voice, her expression a mix of sadness and anger. She walked up to Daksha. "Move." Daksha stood paralyzed, shocked at this turn of events. "Come on," Virini repeated louder, pulling her husband by his arm. "Maya Shrenik, Vidun Mali, let's leave." The Empress of India dragged her husband out of the room. Sati was shattered. She dropped her sword, tears streaming down her face. Ganesh rushed towards her, but Shiva caught her even as she fell. Sati was sobbing uncontrollably as Shiva picked her up in his arms.